Hey friends, it's Rosalind. Welcome back to our garden center tiny farm where I share simple old-fashioned ways to grow a beautiful, productive garden and homestead. If you saw last week's video, we had bought some bare root roses. We soaked them and we planted them into containers until later this spring when the perennials start flushing out in the borders and we know where we have some open spots where we can plant those roses into. But today, well, first of all, I did find another new bare root rose. I was so excited to find. I'll share it with you in just a bit, but we are also going to be planting some herbs from seed and planting it out into the border around the roses to hopefully deter aphids. All of these herbs that we're planting are supposed to deter aphids away from roses. Just last week, I got this book. It's called Garden Roses. It's from Grace Rose Farm. She grows like roses by the thousands. And she has a part in the back of her book that where she shares companion planting for roses to help deter aphids. Some of them draw in the ladybugs that in turn will eat the aphids. So that is some of the seeds that we're going to be planting today. And then I wanted to give you a look at the rose that we picked up just yesterday. I was at Menards, one of our local home improvement stores. And so in last week's video, we planted, one of the roses that we planted was Honey Dijon. And this is a rose that has been bred from Honey Dijon and stainless steel, which we have stainless steel growing out in the front cut flower garden. So, oh my goodness, I was so excited to find this rose. It's called Stephen Rouleau. And both Stephen Rouleau and the Honey Dijon are going on the west side of the greenhouse. I'll share when we get out there what I plan on doing as far as any flower bed out there on the west side of the greenhouse. But I thought it would be so pretty, since these two roses are very similar in coloring, to have them growing both on the west side of the greenhouse together. They have similar growing habits, they have similar coloring. So this is what Stephen Rouleau looks like, the rose that we picked up yesterday. And Honey Dijon, the rose that we picked up and planted last week, looks very, very similar. They both grow 4 to 5 feet tall and 2 to 3 feet wide. So super excited to have those together out there. But let's get this rose in soaking, and then we are going to look at the herbs that we are going to be starting from seed. After we have our herb seeds planted, we are going to be planting up our first spring planter with some of the spring flowers that we picked up yesterday, and we're going to be setting it out into the greenhouse. And I also would love to, if we get time, hang up some curtains in the doorway of the greenhouse to kind of soften things out there a little bit. So let's get started. Some of the herbs that Grace Rose Farms says will deter aphids and other pests from your garden is sage, which we are going to be planting today. Parsley is another one that she says will deter pests. So I do have parsley growing out in the greenhouse already. Thyme, oregano, and mint is another thing that she says will deter aphids and other pests from your garden. I already do have creeping thyme growing in the front cut flower garden and oregano growing out in the herb garden. So what I will probably do, because mint can be very invasive if you plant it straight into the ground, I do have some growing in pots. I might just plant or set those pots of mint close to the roses, as well as grow some catmint around the roses, because catmint isn't as potentially invasive as regular mint. Basil is another one that can deter pests from your garden. I already do have 3 varieties growing. One of them is Thai basil. We have cardinal basil growing, and we also have Tulsi basil growing. So we are just going to plant those 3 basils, just scatter it throughout the borders and in the herb garden. Normally I will buy sage in like those little 4-inch containers from the garden center in spring, but Dollar Heirloom Seeds send out these broadleaf sage seeds. So we're going to get them planted and hopefully have some gorgeous plants to plant out later this spring. I was reading up on it and it said to start sage from seed about 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost. We are like 5 to 6 weeks from our last frost date, so we are pushing it a little bit. But even if these don't, grow into tall, mighty plants this year, they are a perennial here in our growing zone 5B, so they will come back next year even stronger. We have our sage seeds planted, and we are going to set these out into the greenhouse. But another one that I would really like to experiment with is French marigolds. These are like a dwarf plant. They will only grow 10 to 12 inches tall, but French marigolds are supposed to deter aphids. So we are going to plant these around plants that would normally attract aphids and see if it actually works this summer. We are now going to plant up our spring planter. I would like to have everything in here, but I don't know if we'll have room to get everything in there. Our first plant, which will be our thriller, our tall plant, is Molly's White Lenten Rose. Then we have some English daisies, which, oh my goodness, those flowers are so sweet. We have one that is like a single flower, and these are more of a double bloom. Then we have some very velvety pansies. Aren't those so sweet? And 2 saxifrage. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Aren't they so sweet? Let's get them planted and see what we can come up with. All right, our planter is finished. I'll give you a closer peek in just a second. Yesterday, I did pick up all of these pansies to plant out in front of the greenhouse in the tulip planters that I moved out earlier this week. Those tulip bulbs were growing in the garage all winter, and I finally moved them out this week. We are supposed to have a cold front come through tonight. It's like 70 degrees Fahrenheit right now, and tonight it's supposed to go down to right around freezing. And then tomorrow night, it's supposed to go down to 25 degrees Fahrenheit. And I know these pansies would pull through okay, but their blooms would freeze off, and that would be a little sad. I have quite a mess to get cleaned up, but we did plant one of the pansies in this little planter, and the extra English daisy, I ended up only using 1 English daisy in here. So the extra English daisy went in this planter, and we are just going to set those 2 in the bird cage out in the greenhouse. And this is what our planter turned out like. We have our saxifrage. Oh, those little blooms are so sweet. And we have our pansies. We have our double English daisy in here, along with the pansies and our Lenten rose or hellebore. So we're going to get everything set out into the greenhouse and take a closer look at it. Actually, before we head out there, I wanted to show you one of the clematis that I picked up yesterday while out shopping, because like I had shared in earlier videos, the focus for the gardens this year is romantic, old-fashioned gardens, and climbing plants is one of those things that are just so romantic. So, oh my goodness, look at that clematis. And this one grows 8 to 12 feet tall. It has quite a bit of fresh green foliage on it. So we're just going to keep it in our unheated garage until later in spring when we are no longer expecting frost, and then we'll plant it out together. But I would love to add quite a few new arbors and trellises just around the gardens this summer. Before we head back inside the greenhouse, sorry, the roosters are kind of loud out here. There's something that I wanted to show to you. Harley hung up the chandelier that he got as a Christmas gift for me in the center of the greenhouse. We'll take a look at it in just a little bit and also take a peek at the plants. But this is the west side of the greenhouse. We do have pea gravel arriving tomorrow, which will completely cover everywhere that you see this black landscape fabric. It will be covered in pea gravel, which will make everything look a little bit more tidy and put together. So last fall, if you were here, you might remember that I planted this magnolia tree. But here on, we hear you, Simon. Here on the west side of the greenhouse, I would like to bring out a border that comes all the way out here. And all of this would be flower bed right behind the greenhouse as well. I might plant some hostas and hellebore back there. We do plan on moving the chickens' fence. So this might all become orchard eventually. But this is where I want to plant the honey de Joan and the Stephen Rouleau rose right here. And possibly have some boxwoods and just other fun, pretty perennials right in here. And then this will be our pathway that will come in here to the greenhouse. Hopefully we'll have an arbor right here and possibly right here. I don't know. We'll start with one and see where it leads to, but you'll just walk in here to the raised beds. And hopefully this summer we will also be able to add in kind of like a seating area right in here. And if this is your first time seeing any of our videos, this is our little herb garden right beside the chicken coop. So that is where we have most of our herbs planted, and we'll be planting more in there this spring and summer as well. And these are the two doors where I would like to get curtains hung on today. I wish you guys could smell it in here in the greenhouse. The hyacinths have started opening, and since we brought the daffodils in here, these art design daffodils, they smell so good. Actually, I should say all of the winter sown seedlings are back in the greenhouse since it's going to get so cold again tonight. But this is where our pansy and our English daisy ended up at. Over here, the planter that we put together, all of these are perennials except for the pansy. But the saxifrage, the English daisy, the Lenten rose, all of those will be planted out into the landscape later this spring, but we'll get to enjoy it in this planter for now. And hopefully next week it'll warm up. Maybe we'll even put this out on the front porch, but we'll just enjoy it in the greenhouse for now. But I'm thinking, like later this summer, maybe we could plant all of these out around the greenhouse. The pansies, I usually dig up and pot them up and have them in our flower stand that we have out by the road for our customers on the weekend. Spring is my absolute favorite time of the year, and these colors are my favorites to decorate and plant with in the spring season. So you will probably see these colors on repeat through the whole spring season. This is Honey de Joan that we are going to be planting on the west side of the greenhouse that we planted up last week. Isn't that color so pretty? And then this one the Forever Amber, will also be going out into one of the borders. So this is what the curtains would look like hanging up here. And this is what it would look like with the double curtains. Not sure if I can get both of them up without a curtain rod, but we're going to see what they look like. So we'd have one panel like this. I don't know. What do you guys think? Which one do you think would look best? Well, friends, we aren't finished decorating for spring out here in the greenhouse, but things are slowly starting to soften up. These curtains, I'm loving just the softness that it's bringing. I would love to hear which one you guys are liking best, or maybe you don't like either one of them. Either way, I would love to hear about it. But just the spring flowers out here, and we will continue decorating out here in the greenhouse, in the gardens, on our front porch as we continue on into spring. If you're planning your garden right now, now is the time to think about what to plant together. If you have tried companion planting before, I would love to hear what you have planted together or what you plan on planting this spring. Hopefully next week, since we are actually going to be in the first couple of days of April, maybe we can plant some pansies together in the gardens and maybe even decorate the porch, set this planter up on the porch. Hopefully April will bring a little bit more consistent weather. Have an amazing week, friends, and I will see you right back here real soon. Bye.